In this entire module, we've learned that if you want to achieve your goals, you need to plan ahead and invest for them accordingly. We've learned that once you understand your risk profile and match it with the risk of various investment products, you can invest your money, make your money work hard for you, and also sleep peacefully at night. After this, all you have to do is allocate your assets time to time to manage your money and let it grow on its own. Well, this sounds very good, but in some situations when our goals are very near or very urgent, we may fall short of immediate funds, and at such point we resort to borrowings. Borrowing is basically when you take money from a lender and you repay them the money with interest. The amount that you have to repay to the lender includes interest and the principal, and that is divided across the tenure into equal installments, and that is called as equal monthly installments. It's very important to understand that you don't look at borrowings as your go-to option every time you need something and you don't have money. You go for borrowings only when it is extremely crucial and you are out of other options. Borrowings are a means of having instant gratification of anything. Like if you want a phone, you can just borrow money and pay for the phone and have the phone. Result of this is that we end up paying a lot of interest, we get into the debt loop, and that is something that we should avoid. A financially smart person would only borrow for goals that he absolutely needs, and for other goals he will stick to the planning that we've discussed in all the sessions of this module so far. As it's rightly said that if you think nobody cares if you're alive, try missing a few car payments and you would know that bankers do care about your existence because they want their money back. So the most important thing to understand when it comes to borrowings is that just because a banker is ready to give you a loan does not mean you can afford the loan. You need to understand based on your income and net cash flows as to how much money you can borrow, and then do a reverse calculation. So ideally, your EMIs, your equal monthly installments of any loan should not exceed 30% of your take-home income. So if you are earning 1 lakh rupees per month, you should not be paying an EMI of more than 30,000. This is a very sweet and a good spot to be in. However, if this is something of a too much stretch for you, then be up to 50% of your take-home income. So if you're earning 1 lakh, 50,000 of that can go towards your EMI. And if you are in a situation where you're paying more than 50% of your take-home income as EMI, then you know that this is a very big danger sign and you are deep under debt, and the first thing that you must do is pay your debt. Now, debt also includes your credit cards. So let's understand how your cash flow should look like when you're borrowing money. But if you are borrowing money, then ensure that it's not more than 30%, and if you have to go for that extra push, then not more than 50% of your take-home income. Generally, for an individual, your monthly cash flows would look like 50% of your income would go towards your living expenses. Balance 20% should be saved and invested. You should not be in a situation where you are only paying your EMIs and taking care of household expenses and not saving and investing anything. 20% of your take-home income should always be saved and invested. And balance 30% is a comfortable EMI to hold, because obviously that would be for a designated period and your income would also grow over that period. So your EMI burden on your income would reduce as the time passes. Let's look at some of the borrowings that you do for your goals, starting with borrowing for a car. When it comes to buying your car, firstly, we would ask you to avoid taking any loans for the car. Set it as a goal, start saving and investing for the goal, and pay for your car in cash. Yes, there are some situations in which borrowing to a certain extent can be beneficial. You can always take a call at that moment, but try to spend for your car as much as in cash as possible. And if you have to take a loan, then ensure that it is not more than 3 years loan. Let's have a look as to how your EMIs would look like. Where you're buying a new car and you borrow 5 lakh rupees for the car and your interest is 9% and the tenure of the loan is 3 years. Then in the first year, you pay a principal of 1,50,000 and you pay an interest of 43,232. So your total payment is 1,93,603. So basically you've already repaid 30% of your car loan. In the second year, you pay 1,66,117 as principal and 27,486 as your interest amount. Basically, by the end of year 2, you've paid 63% of your car loan. In the third year, you pay a principal of 1,83,512. So basically, you pay off your balance loan. Your interest has also reduced to 10,091 because the principal payable is hardly anything and you've cleared off your loan. So you can see you've paid off your 5 lakhs loan amount, and in 3 years you've paid an interest of 80,809. So by the end of 3 years you've paid 5,80,809 for your car. But what is the value of your car after 3 years? The car depreciates in value. It is not like your house which is growing in value, but car depreciates in value. So on year 2, the value of the car is 4,25,000 and further depreciation on year 3, the value of the car is 3,61,250. So by the end of 3 years, you've paid 5,80,809 for a car whose value is only 3,61,250. Hence, we say that taking a loan for an depreciating asset does not make sense financially, and hence when you're going to buy a car, set it as a goal, save money for it and then buy it, and avoid taking a loan for it to the extent possible. After you've covered car, the next biggest dream of individual is to buy that dream house. And yes, because of the increasing prices of house and the comparable income of individuals, it is very unlikely to buy a house without taking a home loan. So when it comes to such expensive purchases, borrowing for it is alright. We just have to ensure that it fits into our cash flow. 30% of your total income should go as EMIs, 20% should be saved and invested, and 50% goes towards your monthly expenses. 30% can be a bit of a stretch for some. Then you can look at maximum 50% of your income as EMI. Some of the things that you should keep in mind when you're borrowing for a house. One, you never get to borrow 100% for the house. So you have to pay at least 20% of the value of the house as down payment when you book a new house. Your loan eligibility would depend upon your income, your financial position and your credit score. Well, this credit score is very important when you take any loan. It's the reverse of the credit rating that we would check when we were depositing our money. When the bankers give us money, they check our credit score, and if it is 750 and above, then it's a good score. Hence, you must keep a check of your credit score if you're planning to take a home loan or any other loan in the near future. You can take a home loan for as long as 30 years because your house would be one of the most expensive purchases that you would ever make in your life, and the amount could be exorbitant. So the loan duration also that you get from banks could extend up to 30 years. Yes, you can prepay the loan and plan your finances in a way, but always remember that when you are planning to take a house, do your due diligence and understand your numbers very thoroughly before jumping that gun. Let's take an example of a home loan to understand how the numbers work. If you go and take a home loan of 1 CR, the interest on it for the next 25 years at 7.5% would be 1 crore 21 lakhs. So by the end of 25 years, you have to pay 2 crores 21 lakhs for the house. So your monthly EMI would be 73,889. So this amount is what you have to pay each month to your bank for the home loan. Here where your value of the house where your loan that you're repaying is 2.21 CR, one thing to note is that in the next 25 years, the value of the house would also increase. And hence taking a home loan for a house is not bad, and it is something that you also leave behind for your children and your family, and it becomes a family asset in general. Whereas when we talk about not taking a loan for a car can work only for so many years, and after that it only becomes scrap and it never appreciates in value. The third loan that we consider taking is education loan. Well, when it comes to education loan, you can get this loan for your higher education, tuition fees and other expenses related to your course, and we want to do it on our own basis and hence consider to take a loan for our higher education. Now, education loan is something that is disbursement from the bank to the college or the institute when you start your course, but your EMIs only start after the course is completed. The 2 years of gap between the loan disbursement and the EMI starting is called as moratorium period. But do note that the interest has started getting calculated for the loan, because in bank's perspective, they have already lent you money. They are only giving you a period to complete your education, find that job and then start paying your EMIs. So when we talk about considering that 30% of your take home income, you must take an education loan of that amount that you know that the EMI of which after 2 years would be of such amount which would fit into your 30% of your take home income. For instance, if you take a loan today of 10 lakh rupees at 9%, after 2 years the loan becomes 11,88,100, and based on that your EMI is computed. So ensure that your expected salary on 2022 is such that your EMI of this loan of 11,88,000 fits into the 30% of your take home income. Your cash flow numbers would not change in any loans. In fact, if you have more than one loan, then the EMI of both the loans should fit into the 30% of your take home income. So some things to remember when you're taking an education loan is that it covers your course fee and other related expenses. You are the main borrower, your parents or your spouse can be your co-applicant. The interest on education loan can range from 9 to 13% based on your credit score and your co-applicant's score. You have a payment moratorium till you complete the course. Such a moratorium is also available in a home loan, that when you book a house in an under construction building, your EMIs only start after you get the possession of the house. However, the loan starts getting disbursed based on the builder's requirement and your interest also starts ticking. So do not consider moratorium as an interest-free period. It is only an EMI-free period. When you borrow money, you get a tax benefit from the government, especially when it is education loan and home loan. In case of your education loan, the entire interest that you pay per annum is allowed as a tax deduction without any limit. So you can hold on to your education loan for 8 years to enjoy the tax benefit. Whereas in home loan, you get a deduction under 80C for the principal payments towards the home loan up to 1.5 lakh rupees. Then you get interest deductions under section 24 of up to 2 lakh rupees. So your interest amount on the loan in the entire year, if it's up to 2 lakhs, then you get a deduction of that you further get an interest deduction where you bought a house of value under 45 lakhs of 1.5 lakh rupees. So the government has taken these initiatives to encourage us to go for that home loan and education loan and build our dream house or complete that course. So let's quickly revise the things to remember from this session. Your borrowing is dependent on your income and your credit score. So keep your credit score in check to get lower interest rates on your loan. Avoid taking a loan for your car to the extent possible, and even if you're going for it, stick to 3-year loan. You get tax benefit in your education loan and home loan, but they should not be your driving factors to take a loan, but the goal itself. In the next session, we will discuss about taxation.